boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. This just in from the New York Post. Olympic boxer Khelif's leaked lab results offer new evidence about the fighter's biological sex.
As if we needed a PCR test to know that's a man.
Scribe Oliver Brown said, "I've made several attempts today to contact the IOC for a reaction to Khelif's leaked test results. Whether they plan to apologize to the women denied medals, silence. I fully agree with author J.K. Rowling that world boxing's tougher stance is a win for women. Real women. Not pretend, not cosplay,
Not land of make-believe.
defining characteristics and definitions exist for a reason. So now you have to wonder, what is the IOC going to do? Are they going to strip Khelif of his gold medal? It being that it was their gross oversights that led to this fiasco in the first place. Khelif and Lin Yuting were already banned. There was no real reason to allow them to compete at the games, irrespective of what their passports said. They didn't adhere to the various warnings from AIBA. They chose to ignore them.
In effect, fueling this controversy and all of the disingenuous individuals we saw last year, making Khelif out to be the victim.
Supposed to be some sort of women's rights activist that goes by the name Dr. Shola Shomabubu.
Whatever the hell her name is.
Last year, she said, white women's tears should be studied. They're so ridiculous. Quote unquote, I have never been hit so hard in my life, she says. Imagine starting an international incident because you got punched by a biological woman.
You might want to fact check that.
In a women's boxing match and are now crying about it. Angela Carini can take her fake tears to God and leave Khelif the hell alone. It would seem that this doctor's hatred of Caucasian women was enough for her to pretend that Khelif is a biological woman. That seems to be the fuel, the motivator for the stance that she took. Her own hatred of white women, because rest assured, anybody that told you,
Anybody and everybody last year that was telling you that Khelif was a woman in any sense, in any context, is a disingenuous and insidious individual like this Shomabubu person.
prevailing argument was that, well, Khelif was raised as a woman. I can raise a dog like a cat and feed him cat food, but that's not going to make him a feline.
Comprendo, friendo.
Doesn't suddenly become Garfield the cat because I'm giving him cans of Fancy Feast. This is nature, not nurture.
This is biology, not linguistics, and every single argument made in this fighter's defense has been tantamount to semantics.
Semantics and sophistries, because underneath it all, they knew just as much as me and you that this is not a woman. Not in the woman sense.
Not with a male karyotype, it ain't.
So when a Dr. Shola Shomabubu is seen mocking Angela Carini for essentially being assaulted by a male during the Olympic Games, that tells you what kind of person she is. The driver for her stance was her own ulterior motives. Like so many others who spoke up for this fighter for what are their ulterior motives, because it was never about Khelif. It was never about standing up for someone who may have a developmental sexual disorder. What it was about for them and their skin in the game was commandeering women's spaces to subsequently gain control and exclude them, to thereby redefine what it means to be a woman, to mold the definition in their own image.
So they can be the norm. How many times did I tell you that most of the people standing up for Khelif are members of a group that the fighter isn't even a part of?
Khelif may very well have a developmental sexual disorder, but that was never their skin in the game. It was all ulterior motives. That's why the issue got politicized in the first place.
Because of its semblance to so many hot-button topics we see here in the West.
The irony being that these hot-button topics don't even exist in Algeria, where Khelif is from. It's nature, not nurture, and that's why the pushback against this has been so aggressive. You're trying to gaslight all of us.
Brave souls like J.K. Rowling who weren't afraid of being quote-unquote cancelled for telling the truth.
Maybe a writer of fictional characters, but a boxing ring is no place for fiction. No place for cosplay.
As opposed to someone like Dr. Shomabubu who claims to be a women's rights activist.
I'd sure like to know what Dr. Shomabubu considers a woman, since she thought Khelif was one, while the rest of us with our own two eyes came to the conclusion that this is a man. This is a man with a male karyotype, and we don't need a leaked PCR test to know that. We've got eyes, don't we?
They hoped to bury our common sense with nuances.
Commandeer women's spaces with disingenuous and fallacious arguments.
Blowjobs?
I said fallacious, not fellatio, you pervert.
Oh.
It's not pretty. It's gonna get worse. The IOC's feet need to be held to the fire, because if they never would have lifted the ban on either Lin Yuting or Khelif, we wouldn't be here now.
This is their fault in every way. Irrespective of why IEBA was stripped of recognition, there was already enough there that the IOC could have and should have conducted their own investigation, but they chose not to, putting all those girls in jeopardy by allowing two biological men to compete among them.
They chose to look the other way and do nothing, and now there is this mess to clean up. Do they allow Khelif and Lin Yuting to keep those medals, or do they strip them?
We'll find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Boxing Insider Rick Glacier says, told by quality sources, Top Rank still has no TV streaming deal in place once their deal with ESPN is done July 26th. I would have thought Turner Sports, which is WTBS, TNT, and HBO Max, would have been a great landing spot, but Turner isn't interested and no DAZN deal yet. So says Rick Glacier, but I remember the Bob Father a few weeks ago saying that they were going to have upwards of 3 broadcast partners moving forward. So who should we take it from? Who should we trust? Rick Glacier or Bob Arum?
June just got started, and the deal's supposed to end at the end of next month. So the clock is ticking.
It's just a sign of the times, really. The ever-changing landscape and how boxing is distributed and where, who the major players are. Top Rank has a deep roster. They have a very deep stable and a lot of fighters to accommodate. So they need a commitment.
Or several broadcast partners to keep all of those fighters active, like Bob Arum described. Upwards of 2 to 3 broadcast partners. We'll see
if that pans out. And Top Rank are not the only ones in the market for a new broadcaster. The same applies to BOXXER on Sky Sports, whose broadcast deal is also set to expire.
The BOXXER Sky Sports deal is due to expire at the end of next month, and so far, no official renewal has been announced. This looming deadline has cast uncertainty over the future of BOXXER's televised events. As things stand, BOXXER has only one more event officially scheduled on Sky Sports, a June 7th show in Barnsley, headlined by rising super middleweight Callum Simpson. That fight night could end up being BOXXER's last on the network under the current contract.
With no deal confirmed. Speculation is rife about what comes next for BOXXER and Sky Sports. Insiders suggest BOXXER is pushing for another exclusive multi-year agreement, but Sky is reportedly hesitant to commit to a long-term exclusive deal. In fact, one rumor is that Sky would prefer a more flexible fight-by-fight arrangement rather than a guaranteed annual contract for BOXXER. Meanwhile, TNT Sports left with a gap in its boxing coverage after Queensberry Promotions' recent move to DAZN is said to be keeping a close eye on these negotiations. If BOXXER and Sky cannot extend their partnership, TNT Sports Boxing could emerge as a potential new platform for BOXXER's events.
Flexibility from Sky is just another way of saying they don't want to be on the hook for all of their shows. They likely only want the shows, they only want the cards that are worth something. Apropos, the proposed fight-by-fight arrangement.
BOXXER's current TV deal began in 2021 when promoter Ben Shalom Upstart Outfit replaced Eddie Hearns' Matchroom Boxing as Sky's exclusive boxing partner. That lucrative 4-year contract, reportedly worth over £30 million, is now just weeks away from expiring at the end of June, despite Shalom's optimism in recent weeks when he said, "Hopefully we'll have some news very soon." Earlier this month, neither Sky Sports nor BOXXER has officially confirmed an extension of their partnership.
Sky is hesitant to go all in like they did before, because now that they've seen what Ben Shalom could do with what he has, It's just not enough to compete with DAZN. It's not enough to compete with Matchroom and Queensberry.
They know that because they already tried, so they're not going to burn through money trying again, making another commitment. The absence of any announcement has only fueled speculation. TalkSport even briefly published an article claiming a new Sky BOXXER deal had been reached, only to remove it shortly after a curious incident that raised eyebrows and muddied the waters. With only a few weeks left until the current deal lapses, the silence from both parties has left many in the British boxing community guessing what the future holds for BOXXER on Sky.
Like I said, if Sky decides that they don't want to extend their deal with BOXXER, it's gotta be because they know they've got too much to compete with in Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, who are now both on DAZN.
According to sources close to the negotiations, BOXXER is keen to maintain an exclusive arrangement with Sky, essentially a renewal, similar to the original deal, where BOXXER alone supplies Sky's boxing content. However, Sky is said to prefer a more flexible setup going forward. One scenario being discussed is a fight-by-fight arrangement, with each BOXXER event negotiated individually, rather than Sky committing to a multi-year schedule and a fixed budget. This is Sky's way of mitigating the expenses and what they are. How much are they spending on BOXXER shows versus what they're actually getting back?
This approach would give Sky more freedom to pick only the fights it finds the most compelling or cost-effective to broadcast. But for BOXXER, not having a guaranteed slate of events would make it much harder to plan major shows and invest in rising talent with confidence. Losing a long-term deal would put BOXXER at a disadvantage compared to rivals like Matchroom and Queensberry, both of whom enjoy stable broadcast partnerships on the DAZN streaming platform. In short, a fight-by-fight deal might keep BOXXER on Sky in name, but without the security of an exclusive contract, the promotion's ambitions could be hampered.
The stakes in these talks are heightened by the contracts of certain BOXXER fighters. It's believed that some boxers in the BOXXER stable have clauses requiring their bouts to be shown on Sky. If BOXXER can no longer deliver Sky Sports broadcasts, those fighters would be contractually free to walk away or seek other opportunities. In other words, failure to secure a continued Sky platform could trigger an exodus of top talent from BOXXER's roster.
You could see a Frazier Clark migrate to Matchroom, a Queensberry, a Carolyn Dubois migrate to MVP.
A scenario that would severely set back the young promotion just as it has been building momentum. TNT Sports, formerly BT Sport, is watching the situation closely. Until recently, TNT was the home of Frank Warren's Queensberry Promotions, but Queensberry's move to DAZN this year has left TNT without a flagship boxing partner and a noticeable void in its fight schedule. Industry chatter suggests TNT Sports would be eager to open talks with BOXXER if the Sky deal falls through. For TNT, signing BOXXER along with its stable of fighters and events would neatly fill the void left behind by Queensberry and put TNT Sports boxing back on the map as a major player in the UK boxing scene.
Well, that's more than we can say about Top Rank in terms of suitors. We don't know of any potential suitors for Top Rank, but we know of at least one when it comes to BOXXER.
But if TNT was so hell-bent on having boxing on their platform, then why did they let Queensberry go away?
They probably would have preferred that Frank and his stable stay on their platform, but they likely couldn't compete with DAZN's offer, so they didn't have a choice.
For now, all scenarios remain speculative. With the deadline for a decision fast approaching, the British boxing scene is on edge. Fans, fighters, and rival promoters are all waiting on an official announcement in the coming weeks, one that will determine whether or not BOXXER stays put on Sky or charts a new course with a different broadcaster.
The situation is fluid. We don't know that Sky won't decide to renew, though it doesn't look like they're going to. We don't know that BOXXER may not find refuge at TNT. We'll see.
Men's Cruiserweight news. Noel Mikaelian lands yet another shot at Badu Jack after WBC orders a rematch. The WBC announced on Monday it has ordered an immediate Cruiserweight title rematch between champion Badu Jack and former champion Noel Mikaelian following Jack's disputed decision win last month in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Jack, 29-3 with 3 draws and 17 knockouts, retained his title via a majority decision in the chief support bout to Canelo vs. Skull. Mikaelian filed an appeal with the WBC following the decision. Now the sides have until July 1st to strike a deal before a purse bid is ordered. The world knows I won the first fight, that's why I'm getting the rematch. Mikaelian, 34, told The Ring on just 3 weeks' notice across 3 countries and time zones, and with less than a day's notice that the fight would be moved from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. He still couldn't beat me. I'm still the champ, and with a full camp and proper preparation, I'm going to prove it without question.
The nerve of this guy. Bear in mind that he was fighting a 41-year-old Badu Jack who had sat inactive for well over 2 years. 27 months to be exact.
Mikaelian, 27-3 with 12 knockouts, accepted the fight after Ryan Rositsky was injured. Armenia's Mikaelian never lost the title in the ring either. He was named champion in recess by the WBC last year after multiple cancellations for a defense versus Rositsky due to an injury and promotional issues, all of which seemed to miraculously disappear the moment he was able to fight a 41-year-old inactive boxer.
He didn't have any promotional issues with Don King when it came time to fight an aging fighter, an aging boxer.
So I figure that behind the scenes, the World Boxing Council is doing favors for their old buddy Don King, who just so happens to be Noel Mikaelian's promoter, because I can't for the life of me understand why he keeps getting these opportunities. He was ordered to fight Ryan Rositsky,
and for one reason or another, he didn't do it. So why didn't they strip him the same way they stripped Bivol?
Why didn't they put him on the spot? Why didn't they hold his feet to the fire when all of the issues were on his side? The title should have went to Ryan last year,
but it didn't. Instead, they reinstalled a 2 years inactive Badu Jack as current reigning champion, and Noel got a lofty designation as champion in recess, so he could come back whenever he wants and challenge for the title. That seems to me to be a favor to Don King, Don King's fighter.
Creating this mess, and you know what this means. That if Badu Jack is now under orders to fight Noel again, that means Ryan won't get his shot at the title for some time. Ryan, who is still recuperating from his injury, though if not for this, maybe he could have got his shot later on this year.
This puts a serious hamper on any plans Badu Jack may have had to parlay that WBC title into a lucrative payday with, say, a Chris Billum Smith. Chris Billum Smith, who said, "I am number 4 still with the WBC and beat the number 5 in Glanton. I would like to think that I'd be well in position to fight Badu Jack next. I'd love to get the Badu Jack fight. That would be ideal."
Not so fast, sweet cheeks. You may have to fight Ryan, and you guys are going to have to wait for Noel to get his opportunity, his shot. This entire mess is of the WBC's own making.
And the other caveat, Jack and Noel's fight was financed by Turkey El Sheikh, but who's to say that the rematch will be financed by him?
What if he doesn't pay for it this time? Who's going to pay for it then? Don King? Badu Jack is going to fight in some shoebox in Florida?
Hard to imagine he's going to fly out from Dubai to America to fight in some bingo hall.
It's a mess, all right, but it's a mess that the World Boxing Council created, because by all rights, the title should have went to Ryan, and that should have happened last year.